Welcome to the Bella Vista Gardening Show. I'm Jerry Horner, and with me today is Tony LiCausi.
Good morning.
And he is a fellow member of the Bella Vista Garden Club. He is a fellow Benton County Master Gardener, and he is a Northwest Arkansas Master Naturalist. So he's got a lot of titles behind his name. And this is a month we're going to be talking about the complex world of soil. So that's a deep subject.
Yes, yeah,
yes,
very,
it is.
Yes.
And of course, we talk about upcoming events and what to do in your garden for the month of January. So the main upcoming event is the Northwest Arkansas Master Naturalist training. Is starting a new training program in January, and it runs on Saturdays and it ends in April, I believe. So there's a website that you can contact. It's WorldPress.ArkansasMasterNaturalist.org, and all the information's on there.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a great program.
Yep. Yep.
But today we're going to be talking about soil, and we're not talking about dirt.
Big difference between soil and dirt.
And soil is a very, very complex entity
right.
here.
And if I may, to lead it off, sort of an introduction into some of the material that we're going to cover this morning. There's a fellow named Malcolm Beck. Malcolm Beck was a farmer out near Midland, Texas, many, many years ago, and some of the things that were happening in gardening after World War II, he wasn't really excited about.
Yeah.
So he started documenting some of the techniques that he was doing, and he called it organic gardening, but he would take all of his notes in the wintertime, this time of year when you can't garden much, and he'd take all those notes that he had to Texas A&M University, to the Ag Department. And of course, then they were obligated to do their research. And today, they not only teach organic gardening at Texas A&M Ag Department, they have a whole organic library.
Well, they're really into organic gardening.
Yeah. So he was really, in Texas, where I spent most of my life, the father of organics. I prefer to call it, that organic word sort of scares people.
It
so
does, yeah.
I call it gardening the natural way.
Right.
You know, and but this is a line, the importance of soil from Malcolm Beck. So if I may just quote him for 1 second here, you'll indulge me. Soil and dirt are two different things. Dirt is an inert planting medium that holds up plants. Soil is a wonderfully dynamic, ever-changing, complex, living system of life, energy, organic matter, and minerals. Soil, like all parts of the environment, is fragile. It is also hard to repair once it's damaged. Unfortunately, most conventional landscape and agricultural procedures have damaged and are continuing to damage the soil. The key is to stop the damage by starting to use management techniques, soil amendments, fertilizers, and pest control products that benefit the soil.
Right.
And that's basically what
but
we're
not
going
the chemicals.
Well,
that
that's
we've been
basically
using.
what we're going to
Right.
be covering today. So
Yeah.
I thought he just put it in such an eloquent and precise way
did.
that it was worth repeating. You know.
Well, I had an experience when I was training in master gardening, and I was talking to a master gardener that just bought a different house. And I said, well, what are you planting? She says, well, I won't be planting for 3 years. I have to build my soil first. And I thought, that's really strange that you wouldn't, live in a house for 3 years and not plant. And she waited her 3 years. She amended her soil. She got it the way she wanted it, and she planted. And years later, she had the most gorgeous garden you've ever seen.
Right.
And little care, didn't need a lot of water and,
Right.
not a lot of fertilizer. But the soil is what she built first.
Right. Well, it is. So a lot of people don't understand that the soil is full of life, and the more life in the soil, and this is proven university studies, multiple universities all over the country, the more life there is in a cubic foot of soil, the fewer disease problems plants have and the fewer pest problems they have, because the pest insects are only 1 or 2% of the insect population.
Right.
And their job, their mission on this planet is to take out weak plants, weak species, weak cultivars. That's their job. So the plant's only going to be as healthy as the environment's growing up, like kids, you know, like raising children. You know, you're going to have healthy kids, they grow up in a healthy environment. It's that simple.
Yeah.
You had that experience at your place.
Well, when we built our house.
When you built your house, you've told me many times, you know, the kind of...
well, they called it fill dirt that they brought in. Well, it was red clay and rocks from the size of this to this.
Right.
So I'm still dealing, after 20 years, with
still
fill dirt.
Still building the soil.
And I'm still building soil around those rocks.
I thought I was unlucky when I bought my house because I was on a super steep slope.
You're lucky.
And so there was no bringing in dirt until I figured out that the only way to get some horizontal flower beds was to terrace. And of course, then I had to fill in the terracing.
And you brought your own soil.
And I brought in good stuff. And you were there 3 years after I moved in when we had the garden tour. And I remember you standing there laughing when you were looking at my basil because I had bark on my basil plants that were this tall. You know, so, you know, and it was nothing but really, I've got really good healthy soil to begin with, but then amended it. We're going to talk about those amendments a little bit today, but people need to understand that ideal soil, basically, what you want are minerals, water, air, organic matter, and microorganisms. And those are the things we're going to talk about today. So we can start with organic matter if you want to.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when we talk about organic matter, we're talking about anything that was once living that is now dead. Okay. That includes animals. Okay. Now you're not going to put, you know,
dog manure or anything
a
like
dead
that.
deer in your garden.
No.
You know, but in nature that happens. Okay, and over time it decomposes and it does improve the soil in that area.
So that's why you make compost. Right?
But there are other from sea life that has been that you can buy these products. You know that are natural fertilizers that have animal parts in them and that sort of thing, like from turkey factories and things where they raise and process turkeys. So you have to remember that all organic matter is biodegradable, and when it biodegrades, it becomes a humus. If you've got a pile of leaves sitting on dirt, the bottom part as it decomposes is the humus. And this is where the microbes come in and all the life in the soil. Macroorganisms, microorganisms, both. Everybody knows about earthworms because you can see them.
Right.
They're big and, you know, kids been digging them up, fishing with them for years. But there are literally, in a healthy soil, in a cubic foot, there's 900 billion forms of microorganisms.
Right. You just can't see them.
Okay, you just can't see them.
Right.
And what they're doing is they are coming to the surface from subsoil. They're coming up, and that decaying matter, that humus, they're eating that, and then on their way down, you have to remember, to come up, they had to tunnel up. So nematodes and all those things, they had to tunnel up. Now they have to tunnel, and they get some food, and then they tunnel down. So now they've got 2 tunnels going. So they're aerating the soil because oxygen, you know, healthy soil is 45% oxygen, folks.
And your plants need oxygen.
Okay.
To grow.
45%.
Yeah.
So that's why you want loose soil, so it has air. And the other thing is, just like as it is with us or with any animal, what goes in must come out. So what's coming out of them is fertilizer. So they're fertilizing. So the secret is to keep an never-ending supply of organic material on top of that soil as food for those microbes. So that's just a basic, simple thing that you have to understand, how to build that that humus.
And then when you make your
that's there.
compost, the compost is almost free.
Yes.
You know, you just take your kitchen scraps and your leaves and, you know, whatever.
Exactly.
And it's, you know, you don't have to go buy bags of stuff. It's,
Right.
you can make your own.
Well, the nice thing about when you take, you know, kitchen waste, or you chop up that dozen roses that you bought for your wife for Valentine or whatever, and you toss that in and all those various things, instead of sending it to the landfill, you put it in your compost. That compost is really alive with microbes. Other amendments you add to your soil might not have the high variety, you know, by just going out and spreading coffee grinds, for example. If the coffee grinds were in the compost bin and part of that mix, and then you take that and put in the soil, you're going to have a higher microbe count. You follow what I'm saying?
Right. It's richer. It's richer.
Exactly.
A lot richer.
Exactly.
Yeah. And your leaf mold is wonderful too. That's free.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's got leaves in Bella Vista.
Everybody
you know?
has leaves.
And you always said if a leaf shouldn't leave your property.
You should never let a leaf leave your property.
That's right.
Okay.
So just compost
just a little unknown. This is based on research. You know, some of these college kids, they don't have anything better to do. You know, so they do all this research. You know, they found that if you took the average size tree in the United States and the average drop, and you converted it to fertilizer, it'd equal $50 worth of commercial fertilizer.
Right.
Okay. So, also people go out and buy potting soil, and one way to, people say, well, it sure is expensive, you know, they buy, so they're always looking for the cheapest potting soil. Well, one way to buy the cheapest potting soil, okay, and have the richest potting soil is have one place that has nothing but leaves. A big container, whether it's wire, wood, doesn't make any difference.
Just a big pile.
Far corner, big giant pile, where you can get at it from underneath, where you can get to the very bottom in the center and pull that out. That brown humus that comes out of there, you mix that 50-50 with the cheapest potting soil there is, and you have an incredible potting soil base.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So without spending a ton of money. But anyway, we're getting off track there. I did want to talk a little bit about the microorganisms. What are we talking about when we're talking about microorganisms?
You got to feed them. Right.
You got to feed them. Okay. They're microscopic plants and animals. It's not just animals. They're also microscopic plants growing in the soil.
That's your fungi and your...
They're the life of the soil. So we're talking about bacterias, fungi, algae, protozoan, yeast, germs, ground pearls, nematodes, all those sort of things. When you see that white fibrous stuff sometime, okay, that's what we're talking about. You know, that's a living bacteria that's healthy for the soil.
Yeah.
So this is the life of the soil, and you can have a count as high as 5 billion in a tablespoon of soil.
It's unbelievable.
I know.
It really is.
Okay, but they've got, again, I want to go back. They need a constant supply of organic matter, or being added to the soil at all times.
And not chemicals.
And not chemicals.
Not chemicals.
Well, and then the other thing, of course, are your minerals. So when we're talking about minerals, we're talking about iron, potassium, calcium, magnesium, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, magnesium. So you see, this can get there's so many of them.
You almost feel like you have to be a chemist,
You
right?
feel like you have to be a chemist, but you don't have to be a chemist.
Yeah.
We are so lucky to live in the state of Arkansas. In Texas, it cost me $15, $20, $25 for a soil test. Arkansas, it's free.
It's free.
Free, people.
And the reason it's free is there's a tax on all this chemical fertilizers and amendments that you pay, that you don't know you pay.
Right.
But that tax pays for your soil test.
There you go. I didn't. Now I know how they do it. I never knew how they did it.
From that tax.
Somebody has to pay.
Yeah,
I'm glad they're paying.
Everybody pays, and then you benefit with your soil test.
You can go to the Benton County Extension Service on 14th Street in Bentonville, and they will give you free kits. And now's a great time of year to do that, by the way. Perfect time of year to do it. Okay, and it's written for a third grader. Anybody can understand the instructions, and get your soil tested, and it will tell you broken down what minerals are missing, what nutrients are missing, what you have an overabundance of, what you have an underabundance of. so you can get that balance.
And they'll actually tell you how much to add per square feet or something. They'll tell you what to add.
And all you really have to do, now they're not going to tell you what's a good source of magnesium.
No.
But we have this wonderful new tool that's called Google.
Right.
It's the gardener's helper. Just, you know, just Google magnesium and you will see sources of magnesium, okay? And believe it or not, there are stores. Most of them are not box stores, okay? But there are stores where you can go and purchase most of these minerals
but unfortunately, there's not very many of them. That's the
right.
problem.
They are limited. So the more that people are educated,
and the more you ask for these things,
and the more you ask for things, like anything else, you know,
maybe they'll get them.
Just look at how many different products were not available to us here 10 years ago, until the growth started, and people moved in and started demanding these.
And
things.
there's a few organic. Products out there, but you have to search for them.
You have to search for them. And, and of course, multiple things are available. You can get anything online. But some things are too heavy or too bulky.
And the shipping.
And for those heavy things, what I do is when I go to St. Louis to visit my daughter, or my Dallas to visit my daughter, if we go to Kansas City just for the fun of it or whatever, or Tulsa, or even Little Rock, if it's a heavy material like lava sand, for example, I don't want to get that by FedEx or UPS because it's pretty bulky and heavy.
Costs as much as the product.
Just throw a couple of bags in the trunk of the car, you know, and bring it back. Right. But most of the other things and the amounts that we need them. So you get your soil test done and get your soil balanced. Now, Jerry and I were talking earlier about azaleas and roses because there's a thing called pH, the pH of the soil.
Right.
And we were going to talk about that.
Well, I had a soil test done years ago after I first, put my gardens in. And I did a soil test for my rose bed, and I did a soil test for my azalea bed. And you want to, label your soil, what's growing in that soil. So when they test it, they're going to be testing and knowing what you're growing there. So I had my rose bed, my azalea bed, I had my perennial bed, I had the lawn. So I had like 4 or 5 different tests. And when I got the results back, he asked me, are you sure you didn't get some of these mixed up? Because your azalea bed the pH is too high, and your rose bed, your pH is too low. And I didn't mix them up, but that's the problem. My pH was imbalanced for both of those beds. So my roses were growing, but they weren't thriving, and my azaleas were growing, but they weren't thriving. And once I got the pH balanced, it made a world of difference.
Oh, yeah.
So there's just, so many elements to gardening that are under the soil.
Allergies.
There are a lot of allergies. I have them too.
So what we're learning here is that if you have balanced soil, all your plants are going to do well. If you have a unique plant like an azalea or a rose or something that needs high or low pH levels, which would certainly is something a commercial grower would want, or if you're going to do an entire bed of azaleas or an entire rose garden or whatever, that's when you want to play with the pH. And that's where the soil test comes in and it can be made. So again, the plant's going to do great in a balanced soil, okay, with a medium pH, but certain types of plants require high or low. If you've done a lot of hiking like I have, I've hiked all over the world, you'll see plants growing in abundance over here, and over here you just couldn't get it going for anything. Even in your own landscape, sometimes you'll have a shrub or a plant that does well over here and it doesn't do well there, and in nature you see the same thing. And it's because it's the makeup of the soil. When the earth was formed, there's a vein of sand or a vein of something that went through there,
has its own
iron,
little,
whatever, and they all have, So what's going on in the subsoil, or how the wind blows and how organic material is deposited on a slope or in a valley or whatever, depends on what's going to thrive there. So, but in a garden, we can play nature. you know, we can aid nature but again, I want to emphasize, by doing things that nature does, not things that man does. When Malcolm Beck was talking about destroying soil, he was referring to putting things in the soil that came from petroleum. Okay?
All your chemical-based
petroleum
products.
and chemical-based products. I don't know of a desert, a swamp, a marsh, anywhere in the world that is fed with petroleum-based products.
No.
And yet, you can go into just down in East Texas, you know, you can go into the Angelina National Forest and there's 40 different varieties of orchids. Okay? And no one's in there with petroleum products.
That's right.
You know, Mother Nature is not sprinkling it, you know, with malathion or whatever.
But you know, it's a very complex world.
Yeah, it is.
And I did get an article out of the Democrat Gazette a while back, and it's an extensive article about the soil and all that's in it. And I'm going to put that on the website, Bella Vista Garden Club website, and we're going to have a whole section about soil because it's just very complex. But the main thing you have to realize is you're not a chemist, but you can get your soil tested and you can improve your soil.
Exactly.
You know. And you know when your soil is too compact because you can't dig into it. You should be able to, you know, put your hand into the soil.
Add the things that are missing, and don't worry about nitrogen.
Right.
High nitrogen. High nitrogen is great for commercial growers that have to push a product to get it to market, and they do it in such a scientific, proven way, you know, so it looks fabulous in that 1 month or that 2 weeks or 1 week.
When
it's
they
sitting
sell
at the
it.
nursery that they sell it, and that is not for the long-term health of the plant. That's a short, quick fix. So
just putting a little lipstick on that pig.
yeah,
Right.
exactly. So you know, don't just think that you got a problem with something in your garden. You can go out there and throw a high nitrogen fertilizer on it. Everything's going to be wonderful. You may get a flush of new growth, but then it's what happens after that.
Months after
that's
that,
when the problems come.
Right. So, well, this is a good time to be thinking about our soil and doing our soil test. And January can't do too much else, but there are a few
And what about
things.
building a new
Oh, building a new bed. How do you build a new bed?
Well, I made some notes last night. I got a call yesterday from Jerry. He said, "Oops." I was not the intended guest today.
Yeah,
There
we
was
had a little.
somebody got called off to Florida in an emergency, so I made a couple of notes. First of all, if you're starting a new bed, you don't have to do any excavation. That's the big mistake people make.
All that tilling.
Not yet.
You don't want to do that.
You want to add, first thing you want to do is add 4 to 6 inches of compost. Okay, and you can buy commercial compost. You get plenty of it. You can get it from Bentonville. Then you want to add an organic fertilizer, a fertilizer that doesn't have any chemicals in it. And there's plenty of them on the market. A lot of nurseries have them. And that's hadn't been a problem, at 2 pounds per 100 square feet. Then, this is something a lot of people don't talk about, and it's one of my gardening secrets. You want to add some volcanic rock or sand at 4 to 10 pounds per 100 square feet.
Okay, so your volcanic rock is the reason when you go to Hawaii and you see these gorgeous plants everywhere. That's all volcanic rock.
Yeah. Anywhere there's ever been a volcano,
It's got wonderful
just
plants.
look at the plants that grow at the base of those mountains, and the fruit, the vegetables, the whatever that grow in those valleys, wherever there's been volcanoes. And that's all you need to know. One of my favorite apples in the whole world comes out of New Mexico. And I want to tell you, those apples are like eating Krypton or whatever, that Superman food, whatever it is, that Superman ate. They're unbelievable. So
it's a very overlooked element here.
in Northwest Arkansas, volcanic rock sand is available, plentiful. Nitron, for example, in Johnson. I like lava sand. It's a little more difficult to get, and I'll tell you why if you want to know about that. Then you want to add cornmeal and or dry molasses at 1 to 2 pounds per square foot.
And
Cornmeal is carbon, right? It's corn, so it's decaying carbon, so that's humus. It's also a mild fertilizer, and it's a natural fungicide. So any bad bacteria that might be in that soil, that's why you add that cornmeal, okay? Then you want to rototill all this about 8 inches deep, or fork it, and then come over that with 2 to 3 inches of shredded native hardwoods of some kind, some material, not cypress that's been trucked 1,200 miles across the country, okay? Just we got trees all around us, folks, okay? The shredded hardwoods from this area, yeah, that's what you want on the ground, 2 to 3 inches. And you've got yourself the start of a really good, and then you do your soil test once a year, every 2 or 3 years, whatever, and then you add what's necessary as time goes by. So that's really the way
basis
to get your first beds going.
And that's what I did in one bed that I had a mole going through, and it was part of that red rock problem, and I did all these amendments you told me to do, and I tilled them in, and now I can put my hand down into the soil, about this deep before it gets hard. So it's been a great bed. Yeah, people don't believe it by the time when you got. How do you know when you got it where it's perfect? Two things. One is the smell test. Yeah. When you pick up a fistful and you smell, it should smell like the forest floor. That's number two. You ought to be able to take your hand like this and just put it in and go straight down to your wrist. So if you got that going, you've got some good healthy beds. There are so many things you can amend. I made some notes last night, and I said, nobody's going to want to hear all this because there's too many. We'd be here. Well, we're going to have to put this on the website.
We'll be here till Saturday, but we'll have it on the website.
You can put it on the website.
So what are some of these amendments that I can add that I don't know about? I'm just going to tell you a couple of my favorites are alfalfa meal, bat guano, blood meal, bone meal, coffee grinds, compost, cornmeal, earthworm castings, fish emulsion, green sand, love it, humates, lava sand, again, and molasses. Dry molasses. Those are my favorites, personally. They're all good, and they'll be on the website.
Yeah, we'll put those on the website.
And the reason I like the lava sand, if you were going to ask that, better than the other. The lava sand, when you look at a particle of lava sand under a microscope, it is like a sponge. It has little holes in it, where regular volcanic rock is just like little microscopic boulders. They're just solid, and they work good from a drainage standpoint and all that. The lava sand does the same thing, but the lava sand keeps the platelets of clay from sticking together. It allows excess water to drain by. But every one of those little specks of lava sand is a miniature sponge. So you have moisture without excess water. And a lot of people don't know that the largest trees, the biggest trees, all those roots that you see, the roots that are feeding that tree, that big monster oak tree, are about that big. And those little fibrous roots, they find that moisture in that lava sand,
And then it reduces your amount of water you have to put on your plants all the time.
Because it retains water. So
it's going to save a lot of money in Bella Vista.
Even on house plants, especially for people that travel a lot, if you travel a lot, you have a half-inch layer of lava sand on top of your house plants, and you water that plant real good. You can go to Europe for 2, 3, 4 weeks and come back. You're not going to have a dry pot.
That's great. Well, we're going to have to work on our soil.
I know, work on that soil.
That's our main job this spring, is to work on our soil. But for the fall, for the winter, in January, we have to worry about ice and snow. And if you have ice and snow on your plants, if you have ice, just leave it melt, because if you try to take ice off your plants, they're so brittle they'll break. A heavy snow, you can maybe go out with a broom and take some of the heavy snow off if it's bending some of your you know, branches, but the ice, you just have to let it melt. And we were talking about what you do on your driveway with the ice, and don't use that salt. That's going to go right into your plants.
Yeah, you don't want salt washing off into your flower beds.
So you can use sand.
Sand is
a
good
plants.
material. It's inexpensive.
Right.
It's available at any
Right.
hardware store.
Any kind of sand will,
Or any kind of sand will
help
work
with your
good.
driveway.
If you want to spend a couple of extra pennies, you can get the volcanic sand, and so that's just more beneficial for the garden.
that helps both ways.
And
right?
I use lava sand
Yeah.
because I have plenty of it, and I put the lava sand down.
You bought it
and
in
it
bulk, right?
washes off and blows off, and
Right.
when the ice is all melted, and it goes right into the lawn and flower beds and wherever.
And then your winter annuals, if you have any pansies, you know, or violas, you can just deadhead them sometimes, and just give them a little fertilizer if it warms up.
Yeah.
The warm days.
We've had if you have pansies right now, we've had really dry,
and
cold weather,
cold
sustained cold for several days. And so you can't go out there and water, and you can't do anything. But we're going to hit some weather here this weekend. We're going to get rain, so you're not going to have to water. And the temperatures are going to get in the 50s. That's an excellent time to jump out there and get some natural fertilizer on the pansies. I'm going to foliar feed mine with fish emulsion.
Yeah. Well, the next Garden Club meeting is going to be on Wednesday, the 24th of January at 11 o'clock at the community church, Bella Vista Community Church. And we're talking about beekeeping basics. We're going to have a beekeeper there.
Great.
And that's Patrick Edwards. So that's going to be a great, great program. And all guests are always welcome to come to the Garden Club meetings, have a little lunch, and a good program. So thank you, Tony, for joining today.
You bet.
You always have a wealth of information to share.
Boy, did the time go by already?
It just flies by
Oh my
when
goodness,
you're having fun.
we just zipped right through it.
That's right, we did.
Anyway, remember that, Einstein said, look to nature, you'll find the answer to everything. And, just go out there and see if you can duplicate that forest floor, and you'll have a healthy garden, healthy plants.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if you have enjoyed our show, I hope you'll join us next month. And until then, don't forget to stop and smell the roses.
There you are. Is that a wrap?
That's a wrap.